Okay, hi everyone. So today we are moving on to talk about a concept in computer science that's pretty important to object-oriented programming called inheritance. And so there's going to be a couple ways that we demonstrate this. The first way, and I'm going to actually bring some props to class, is through something that you probably all are familiar with, which is a Mr. Potato Head. So Mr. Potato Head is, pretty generic guy. He's got, a potato face, and he's got lots of parts that you can sort of put on his face in different ways. So we're going to talk about this Mr. Potato Head guy and the concept of inheritance. And in class, you're going to see, let's see if I can get this off. We actually have they're kind of stuck in here. We have lots of different parts in here, hands and things, and we also have a bunch of other bodies. So we can make multiple Mr. Potato Heads or Mrs. Potato Heads. And basically, like when you make a Mrs. Potato Head or you make a dog potato head or whatever else you're going to make, you're making what's called an instance of a potato head in just a different form. So that's really interesting because we start talking about things as, inherited or traits that get inherited. So every Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head that you make has the same basic form. It has a potato body and it has all the parts, but the parts can be different. So what happens if you just have parts and you don't have the body? Well, that basically means that you forgot to initialize your superclass constructor, and we'll get into what that means in a minute. But you can't have just the ears without having the body to put it on. The Mr. Potato Head example is one that we're going to work on in class, and we're also going to talk about it in the context of muffins or cupcakes, and you'll see that on the iPad. In the meantime, I'm going to show you a little video clip that talks about inheritance in the way that you think of it from a biology perspective and try to relate that to code. So hopefully this helps clarify the concept for you. Okay, so today we're going to start talking about inheritance. And we're going to think about the different traits that is common in inheritance. So let's say that we have a person, and you're going to have to ignore my drawings because they're very crude. But we have a person, and the person has 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, and some hair. And we have another person, and that person also has 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, and some hair. Okay? So, when you think about this, the traits are common among all people. All people have 2 eyes, they have a nose, they have a mouth, and they have hair. So, but then you get to things that are a little bit different. So, for example, this person might have blue eyes. This person might have brown eyes. So let's make his eyes brown. Okay, and then this person might have hair that's blonde. Okay, maybe it's even longer than the hair I drew. Okay, and it's straight. And this person might have curly brown hair. Okay, and then with each person, what you want to think about is things that are that can define them. So, for example, you might talk about their height, right? How tall are they? Or you might talk about their weight. How much do they weigh? You could also say, things like eye color or hair type or hair color, right? So every single person is going to have some sort of trait or personality. Now, what happens if these 2 guys get together and they have a baby? right? So what is going to be the trait or characteristics of the baby? Well, what's going to happen is that they are going to also have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and eventually some hair, okay? But let's see. They're going to have brown hair, and they might have blue eyes, okay? So they have, they're a mix. They have some personality traits from the mom and some personality traits from the dad. All right. So we now consider the child again. Here's the baby, okay, we just drew. And we'll draw the baby quickly. All right, so again, they have blue eyes and they have the brown hair. So, if you remember from biology, hopefully you do, the way that these traits are determined is that you have, genes that are passed down from one parent to another. So, perhaps the mom is, actually that's not right, let's see, perhaps the mom has BB and the dad has brown. So the dad had brown eyes, and the mom had blue eyes. So this child basically received this set of genes, and that was passed down. Now, those traits are all sort of common. But now what happens if, in this case, this child develops something like asthma? Okay, now neither one of the parents had asthma, but this child can develop it nevertheless. However, asthma is an inherited trait. So when this child ends up meeting a person, a young lady, right, and she has some sort of hair and eyes and a mouth and nose and all those traits, and they have a baby, okay, eventually that baby, all right, could get asthma, and that would be another trait that the parents didn't have. So this is sort of, kind of an overview of your basic biology lesson having to do with inheritance, but it does translate to computer science and getting into the concept of inheritance. So I'd like you to think about, at this point, how exactly it does translate into computer science. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to think about how we would translate the inheritance into code. So when you start thinking about what we were talking about creating some class, we'll call it person. Let's do that first, actually. Okay, so public class person. And then within that class, we're going to have some private instance variables. So the first one we might have would be my hair, so that's a string. My hair color. We might have private string my hair type. We might have private string my eye color, and then we might have private double my height, and finally we might have private double my weight. Okay, but eventually you're going to have a whole bunch of methods here, which I'm not going to do at the moment. You're going to have methods of what you want to do. You're going to have your accessor method. You're going to have your modifier method. You're going to have your constructor. I'll put the constructor in. Public person, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to fill the whole thing in right now. And that would be your first person. But now let's say you wanted to be able to extend the example that we gave, and we're going to say we're going to create a class called child. And that child is going to extend the person class. And then for that child, we're going to basically create another private instance variable, which is a Boolean called has asthma. Okay, so you can see that, I mean, this example isn't so practical, but I just wanted to give you the idea of, you know, the drawing that we did, what it would look like in code. So you can see that, you know, the state variables, the private instance variables, would just get extended for the needs of the subclasses or the descendants. Okay, so we're going to see some more practical examples, and we'll go through that in class, but I wanted to just give you sort of a high-level explanation of what we mean by inheritance.